City council members have announced their plan to disband the Minneapolis Police Department.
We're calling for defunding the police.
Shootings in New York City have more than doubled this year.
This is the #1 podcast for police, mates, society, and culture. It's also the #1 podcast for the Comm Center with Drew Breezy. Drew, we got a voicemail from last week. Did you want to start playing?
I do. We'll get into it in a second. I just want to address real quick. Hopefully our technical issues are ironed out. John has found another week of employment, and we are thankful for that because we love his beard. If you love John's beard, please put the #1 in the chat. And if you don't like his beard, please put the #2. We have a voicemail from last week that we didn't get to play because though the audio was supposed to drop on Saturday, it would have dropped on Saturday, and Sunday. Because we were mired in echo. I still swear echo is the new Dolby. John agrees with me, but unfortunately,
Twice as good.
It's twice as good. Unfortunately, the internet does not. Here is a voicemail. Take it away, Micah.
Hey, Comm Center. This is Micah. Just calling back to say I just got done washing puke off my pants. I'm wearing my backup pants currently at work. I need y'all to lift my spirits here next week. I know last week was rough for you. But through your growing pains, I got faith in you guys. Looking forward to the next Comm Center. Just do the damn thing. John, keep your head up, and look forward to hearing from you guys. Looking forward to my days off. They can't come too soon.
Is that not the nicest thing you've ever heard?
Yeah, Mike is pretty awesome.
Well, John, how have things been going?
Things have been going good here, Drew. You know, it's been an easy week. We've here in the snow, we've been having trucks turning over all day, but nothing too terrible. How's it going there in sunny South Florida? I have to say, I just love all your Instagrams. When you get on there, you say, oh, this is my home. And you're in an indoor pool where it's warm. And there's a sylvan glade and a herd of deer prance past you. You're like an old Disney movie, like Song of the South, where you've got little bluebirds alighting on your shoulder down there. And then you're giving me crap about complaining in the snow. I'm barely surviving out there. The only good thing for me about the cold is that it preserves me from aging. Like the only reason I haven't died yet is from the cold, but I can't get anywhere in the snow. So
that's true.
How are things going down in sunny South Florida? We all can't wait for hurricane season. How is it going?
That's so true. It does preserve you from aging because anybody who's been a member of the WPAC knows that John is 76 years old. So we took a ski trip. My beautiful family and I took a ski trip to North Carolina to find snow. You're right. I do live in paradise here. I live in there's a beautiful backyard that I sit out and drink coffee on the patio. And as one of my old workmates used to say, I watch the world wake up from back there. And so occasionally deer will prance by. There's a gator that has taken residence across the pond from us. And it's quite bizarre. It looks like a dinosaur out there. But we so that was like today. I mean, you know, it's just good to be back home. I think I had to wear a hoodie for the first part of the morning. But when we went to North Carolina skiing, it was a trying experience from the patient's standpoint, and I was trying not to be a patient. And I'm sorry to be so quick with the wit, but that's the way things go. And it's ironic because just before we came on the air, I pulled up an article that talks about Apple, who is reportedly talking with emergency call centers amid complaints that skiers' iPhones and Apple Watches keep triggering 911 calls. Listen, I'll bet that America doesn't know this. And John, you can help educate them. Way back when 911 was created, I mean, it was a long time ago. I think 1986, most places had it. But it was, you know, it was obviously the first 911 call was long before that.
It was 1962 in Alabama. Senator Rankin Fight performed the first 911 phone call.
Very good. Rankin Fight. And that's actually, I'm trying to think of Something clever with rank and fight. I think that's exactly what we did in high school. We ranked and we fought. So we were getting the world accustomed to 911 calls from their residences, and John didn't understand the 911, the issues with that when you had to actually dial on a rotary phone, because if you hit 811 and it's an emergency, you had to start all over again. So thankfully, DMTF or whatever it is, push button technology came along. Then within the last 4 or 5 years, or maybe 6 or 7, just very rapidly, we started seeing the emergence of cell phones. So I'd say in the call center where I worked, the comm center where I worked, I think the staggering statistic is about 90% of the phone calls that came in were from cellular calls. Most of them like phase 3 or 4, meaning there's some kind of technology in there that can identify where the caller's coming from. Some of them don't have that luxury. But as we progress, iPhones today possess technology, or they're working on technology to not only show where you are on a map, but to show your elevation as well. And Apple Watches do the same thing. So when you fall down, sometimes your Apple Watch will go into like an emergency mode. It's the same kind of technology that police officers have used in their radios. If you get into a fight or a tussle and it's a certain type of digital radio and you end up on your back, there's some kind of rocker switch or level in
a man down switch, right? Yeah,
there's a man down switch, and it just automatically starts broadcasting what you're doing. So you have to be very careful that, when you lay your head on your pillow in the morning, that you shut your radio off. So Apple is reportedly talking with emergency call centers that say they are dealing with an increase in automated 911 calls due to its crash detection feature on iPhones and watches. This comes from an article in the Business Insider. A spokesperson for the tech giant told the New York Post that it's getting feedback from emergency call centers who've seen a spike in automated emergency calls, but didn't specify if or how the feature would be updated to better prevent accidental 911 calls in the future. So it says that they're automated calls, and they're coming from skiers who have newer Apple devices with its actual crash detection feature. The feature sends users a message and an alarm sound if it thinks there's been a crash, and users can dismiss the message. But if it passes 20 seconds, the feature sends an automated message with the user's GPS coordinates and a callback number to the closest emergency call center. So think about swooshing down the hill. Your beard is flapping in the wind, and you hit the first tree that you hit, and you don't realize that your Apple Watch or your iPhone has triggered the crash technology. I think if you've had an Apple Watch, you've probably held the wrong buttons down, and you see that emergency countdown, 20, 19, like it's going to call emergency services for you if you don't take your hand off the button. But if you're skiing and you have all that thick clothing on and a helmet like you're supposed to anyway, chances are you don't know that thing goes off. So how does that affect the comm center when you start to get an influx of calls like that, John?
Well, first of all, if I'm skiing, 911 is appropriate because I'm terrified of skiing, and I'm terrified of anything that involves heights. And whatever you want to say about skiing, it is a controlled fall down a hill. We're getting a lot of 911 calls from Apple iPhones. What I'm seeing the most is you take your cell phone, and I'm sorry, everybody, this is a filthy Samsung, but I'm just a poor public service employee. You put it in your cup holder in your car, and there's 2 buttons on the side that when to press will activate your 911 system. But what's happening more often than not is that's deluging your 911 system with bogus calls. So that causes 2 terrible things. Number one, it takes attention away from real emergencies, and it focuses on nonsense, which is bad for anyone that's in a real emergency. It is a reality in 911 call centers that when many bad things are happening, sometimes 911 calls are put on hold. I would hate to be a 911 caller with an actual emergency and then be put on hold because the operator doesn't know what's on the other line. The other bad thing about it is that it makes 911 operators very jaded. 911 rings, and we have a provider for our emergency medical dispatch, and they have kind of a buzzword for this, and I think it kind of holds true, but they call it the 300 call syndrome, where you're so used to routine calls, 911 calls being butt dials or accidental dials that all of a sudden when 911 rings and it's a bona fide emergency and it's something mildly terrifying, that you're not psychologically locked in and ready to go. And that's a bad thing for an operator.
So, yeah, because you can't, it's very hard to distinguish between a wrong 911 call, like a wrong number, and just like an emergency where people can't talk. It's almost impossible to distinguish between the two. And in fact, that's a very prominent stressor in the community of 911, because are you listening to somebody gurgling death? Are you listening to somebody being choked? And we just passed a very important anniversary here in Florida. Denise Amber Lee was the poor victim that was her father was actually I believe a homicide sergeant at a sheriff's office close to here, and she was unfortunately kidnapped and in a trunk and attempting to call 911, and it just kept being passed from jurisdiction to jurisdiction because it was hitting different cell towers. So unfortunately, nobody ever got to Amber, and she was, unfortunately taken from us. She was killed by her captors. So might be an interesting story to break down at some point, but just think of how harrowing that is for a 911 operator to sit and listen to. I mean, you're hanging on every word. You're trying to make out what's being said on the other end of the line. And now we have this new wrinkle of technology where it could be just some dude skiing, I mean, and clogging up the system, so to speak. So just for a frame of reference, just think about when you're on the interstate, you as a cop, you as a person, you as a traveler, you're on the interstate and you see a crash on the side of the road and you've been held up by traffic for a good 6 or 7 minutes. Just think of how many people have actually called 911 over that same crash, assuming that the 400 people in front of them have it. People will call 911 until they see those red and blue flashing lights. And what that does is it overwhelms a communication center of only 4 or 5 911 operators, or in John's case, sometimes the 911 operator. And real true emergencies can't get through. They're going to overflow to some other agency and it's going to slow down the process. So go ahead, John.
I've had it before where I witnessed a 3-car pileup in front of me on the interstate, and I got out to help. And the thing I said to my passenger was, "Don't you dare call 911," because that was the only 911 call I could control. There's so many vehicles on the interstate. I knew that all those people are going to call, so I just got out and started helping, and I didn't want her to call. You get kind of jaded as a 911 dispatcher to the point where I've driven past a fully engulfed vehicle as well, and I decided not to call. I just decided to help because so many people will call.
Right. Somebody's got this. Like if it's fully engulfed at this point, at least 20 people have called. Here's something that maybe the general public doesn't know or doesn't think about. And I don't even know if it happens in your communication center, John, but the National Emergency Number Association, NENA, is kind of like a governmental agency that oversees 911. It's not regulatory. It doesn't, I don't think that they have like rules that you have to follow. But definitely they give guidelines of what should be followed. And one of the guidelines is a 911 call should be 90% of your center's 911 calls should be answered within 10 seconds or less. Now, 10 seconds is an eternity for the person on the other end of the phone. That's probably 3 or 4 rings. So 90% of the calls have to be answered in 10 seconds or less. So what happens is, if all of the 911 operators are tied up, then an audible alarm will go off to let everybody else in the communication center know, like that are in different positions, like as a supervisor or they're on a radio, to quickly log into 911 and start taking the overflow of calls. You can kind of predict when that happens that there is a major intersection and a major crash. You just get, hey, are you calling about the crash at Dale Mabry and Waters? Okay, thank you for the call. We already got it. So stuff like that happens until people see those red and blue lights or the red lights of the Jason Kiefer Memorial fire truck. Then they're just going to keep calling 911. But do you have alarms or stressors like that in your comm center?
Well, according to I believe the FCC, you've got 8,000 250 or thereabouts call centers in North America. And each one of them is responsible to their local community, and they're paid for by their local community, and they're oversaw by different boards and depending on what jurisdiction they're in. So every 911 call center is a little bit different. For smaller ones like mine, what happens is we have basically we have 2 lines that come in for 911 calls. And 911 is a physical phone line, meaning it could hypothetically be busy. We have 2 for cellular, we have 2 for landlines. And then, so if you have 4, if all of those are full with 911 calls, the last one will roll over to an admin line. So the phone will ring like an admin phone. Then after that, it goes to our backup, which is another 911 agency that's nearby us that we basically have mutual aid with. So they'll take the call, they'll start processing it. But basically they act like a buffer. They punt the football back to us, and then the phone call will ring back into us. But at least at that point, someone in public safety has been made aware of it. If we've got a mass casualty incident or something like that going on, and say they wanted to send a state trooper or something into our jurisdiction to deal with the problem, they could do that. So every agency is different, but overflow is a serious problem. 911 is a limited resource, and something you'll see, I know that they're dealing with in South Florida with a lack of operators, is that people will dial 911 and a ring and a ring and a ring, and they'll get into a queue, and then they hang up, and then because they're frustrated, they'll dial 911 again, and then they're back at the bottom of the line.
Yeah. So think about that. If you ever call 911 by mistake or whatever, or a 911 operator calls you and says, "Hey, you called 911." No, it's not a joke, because that's the first thing everybody says. "You're kidding, right? Who is this?"
Yeah, they don't believe you because on their caller ID on their phone, it doesn't say 911. They'll say, "Why doesn't it say 911?" I'm like, "Because 911 doesn't work that way. Do you want to resolve this or not?"
So just think about that. And you're right. Staffing is definitely a big problem when it comes to, especially to 911 calls. Think about, and I've said this in failure to stop episodes, specifically when we're talking about Uvalde. Like, what do you think is the first thing to go when an active shooter happens? I mean, what everybody is taught, if you're not running, you're calling 911. So if there's only 3 or 4 operators on duty at the time, and in Uvalde CISD, I think there was only 1, all of the spare calls are going to flow out somewhere else. This is one of the major issues that occurred with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas down in South Florida. It was just the overflow, and then there was a lack of communication between the agencies, because one municipality's fire department started receiving an influx of calls and didn't communicate that to the local police department or sheriff's office, or there was a whole commission about it. So just stuff to think about. I mean, who's calling 911 during an active shooter? Every single person there. So think of a crowded shopping mall. Think about people who are texting home, and then their parents are calling 911 from home, saying, "My kid's at the Chess King in the mall, and there's an active shooter running through there." Think of all the cops that are calling up to a communication center. Hey,
what's going on? Yeah,
an active shooter, and they just get overwhelmed very quickly, and it's understandable why. And that's how the communication breaks down. That's how, whether the radios work on the inside of the building or not, more often than not, it's moot, because you're not getting the fresh intelligence, or you're not listening to the fresh intelligence that the communication center would be providing you.
There would have been so much intelligence coming into one operator in Uvalde that people were dialing 911, and I'm sure they were getting busy signals, or they were getting diverted out of the area. And there were so many, and you'll have to forgive me on this, but there's so many garbage 911 calls where someone's calling because they're scared. They have no intelligence or anything that's helpful to the police. They're scared of the situation, which is understandable. We don't want you to not call 911, but from a tactical standpoint and from an information gathering standpoint, it takes so long to process through a caller who is terrified and hysterical. Even on these car accidents that Drew was mentioning earlier that bog down a system, you'll get multiple 911 calls on a car accident. And the main thing I'm trying to ascertain is how many patients are there, and how badly are they hurt, and how are they hurt. And so many callers will call because they're scared, or they think no one else has called and they have no information. And I have to end up hanging up on them and moving on to the next call and hoping the next one does. So with Uvalde, between all the responders calling in and just the limited number of physical phone lines, which again, folks, is a wire going into a building, there's no way that she could have processed the amount of information coming in, let alone got it out.
It's horrible. And it's an issue. and it kind of gets back, maybe we were over lamenting last week about how disrespected dispatchers are, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. If they're not treated as equals or peers, then you're not training them for major incidents like this, and they are not only the important cog in the whole scheme of things. They get the ball rolling. The communication center is where everything starts, and if you're not training them properly, or you're not incorporating them into your active shooter training, that's a problem, and it's unfortunately going to come back to haunt you if, God forbid, you do have a mass casualty event. This is not a mass casualty event, John. What we're going to talk about tonight, what we promised we were going to talk about tonight.
This is serious stuff, Drew, and I don't want to make light of it. Oh, wait, no, I want to make light of it.
That's what we promised. This is making light of heavy situations. So John's going to talk. We're going to break down a call that happened in Columbus, Ohio, I believe it was. It was the first part of this is a 911 call. You're going to hear the caller. You're going to hear what a 911 operator has to deal with. John's going to talk a little bit about that. And then we happen to have the body worn cam video of the outcome of the call. And so you're going to see an officer have his patients tried as well. I want to be fully transparent. We took this from YouTube, from the Daily Caller type YouTube channel. So we're going to be replaying that, but we're using it for educational purposes. But John, here we go. I want to start by, let me see if I can get this to work.
The call comes in as a domestic dispute, which is one of the most dangerous calls that a police officer can go on, because you're dealing with at least two people who are highly agitated and possibly armed, and one of them may not be completely honest about what's going on. But the caller in this case was extremely agitating and extremely agitated. Calls into the call-in center, calls 911. And what happens here is a unique process in 911 that most people probably aren't familiar with, but it involves a 911 transfer from one center to another. And why would you want to do that? Well, your cell phone, what it does is it actually reaches out to the closest 911 tower near you, regardless of carrier. So every cell phone tower is a piece of physical infrastructure owned by Verizon, AT&T, or whatever. But when you dial 911, it goes to the closest one. Well, the closest tower to you may not be the one that's attached to the 911 center that sends the resource to your house. So in order to get the resource that was needed, the 911 caller had to transfer the call from one place to another. This is always an irritating process, because no one on a 911 call can understand why a transfer is taking place. In fact, sometimes they'll grumble, well, it's not like this when I call in Omaha. And anyway, the process for that is normally what we call a warm transfer, where you're telling the next 911 agency everything that you know so far, and the caller's on the line. And you try to make that a smooth process. There's reasons for that. Makes the caller more agitated, makes the 911 operator who's kicking off the call agitated, makes the 911 receiver very agitated. And this person engages in a power struggle with the 911 operator. They're angry. Normally, anger on a call indicates that somebody needs help, but in some cases, it just indicates anger. Drew, whenever you're ready, we can go ahead and play it if you are indeed ready.
I'm quasi-ready. Let's see if this will work. Hold on a second. Oh, this is what we need to do. If we don't have audio, we're going to have to go to plan B, but that's fine. Can you hear that?
Just talking. Don't talk over me.
Can you hear that?
Talk over me. You're welcome.
Ma'am, what's going on there?
Thank you for talking over me.
Ma'am, our policy is for the other agency that you were talking to announce the call. So what's going on?
Okay, but I am talking. I am talking, though. That means do not talk over me. I am the one with the emergency. I am the one who is about to pay you guys through my taxes, through my call. Right? Yes or no?
Can you tell me what's going on? Ma'am, if you're going to continue to yell, I'm going to disconnect the call. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Hello.
Hi. All right, so we're going to pause it here. We're going to pause it at this point, and John and I want to discuss a few things. First of all, John, if I heard right, and I remember my days as a dispatcher, probably I was a little bit more short-tempered than, and less patient than they were, but if I heard right, she hung up on her. Is that ever acceptable?
It is under certain circumstances. It's not okay to do it because someone's berating you. And almost everyone's standard operating procedure, it basically says callers are frustrated, callers are angry, callers are engaged in a power struggle, callers are angry at the government, callers are this, that, and the other thing. Because you're angry is not a good enough reason. Now, I hate to kind of play the classic card, but what's the context on this? We didn't hear any 911 before this. We heard this lady already up to 11 yelling, I pay my taxes. Answer me yes or no right now. Who's in charge? I don't know what happened before this. Maybe it escalated slowly. Maybe the 911 operator didn't de-escalate it properly. Generally, once you've established that there is no emergency, you can, but and as you guys will see as the video continues, that I'm not sure a 911 operator could legitimately say that there was no emergency, particularly since here's something that is news for anyone that might not know. People that dial 911 often don't tell the truth. That's something I want to say to police officers too, who may complain about inaccurate or bad information, that we do the best we can with what we're told. And in this case, with the domestic, you're very likely to get poor information.
Right. So you talk about de-escalation with officers. This is something I kind of want to discuss here. First of all, just in general, when you're talking to somebody face to face, there's so many first of alls. The telephone tough guy is the worst human on the planet. Okay. And she's obviously a telephone tough girl. And she's nasty. She's just downright nasty. But you have to make an assessment as a 911 operator, or perhaps a law enforcement officer who's standing in front of this, whatever she is. Does she really have an emergency? Because she's more interested in telling you about how you should do your job than she is about telling you what the emergency is. So these are some of the things that you can throw in with your kind of verbal judo over the phone, or like when you're standing face to face with her. I'm here now. It's just that repetitive persistence. You speak a little bit lower than she is and you try to calm her down. I understand that. I am here now though. And how can I help you? And if she's continuing on her path of berating you, you can see obviously either she's in crisis or she's got nothing but hatred for you. So make sure that you pay attention to where her hands are and what she's doing if you're present. Let me go ahead and play the 911 part over again, if you don't mind, John, just so people can get an idea.
No, go ahead and play it. And remember, just one thing, after we break down the rest of the video, let's narrate it for our listeners.
Got it.
North Brinker Avenue. I was just talking. Don't talk over me.
County.
Do not talk over me. You're welcome.
Ma'am, what's going on there?
Thank you for talking over me.
Ma'am, our policy is for the other agency that you were talking to announce the call. So what's going on?
Okay, but I am talking. I am talking, though. That means do not talk over me. I am the one with the emergency. I am the one who is about to pay you guys through my taxes, through my call. Right? Yes or no?
Can you tell me what's going on? Ma'am, if you're going to continue to yell, I'm going to disconnect the call. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
The have a good day is always just kind of like the little jab
that's how you stay out of trouble. You say, well, at least I was polite to her. Have a good day.
I was as courteous as I could be. I told her to have a good day. We're going to show the body worn camera video from here. A couple twists and turns in this little incident, but here we go.
Oh, hi. Sorry about that.
That's quite all right. What's going on?
A domestic dispute.
Okay.
And it's over.
Everybody's okay?
Everybody's okay.
Are you the one who called?
No. My daughter did.
On you?
No. On my...
Okay. First observations first. She's holding a cig. She looks a little beat down. I mean,
just cheated at bingo.
She what?
She just cheated at bingo.
She more than likely cheated at bingo, but she's just got that look on her face, like you can tell by her tone, like she is just over this shit. You know what I mean?
She looks tired. Yeah, you have a tired woman there who can't believe she's doing this again.
She does look worn out. I also want to point out, and you'll hear it in a minute. The only time the snowplow / garbage truck / derrick to pull up the entire sidewalk in your city is ever going to be at a house, it's going to be when you're there trying to conduct an interview. You'll hear what I'm saying in a second.
All right, well, I need to talk to him. I need to see him.
It is. You can see him. It's fine. It's whatever.
Do you get the impression that she's like, listen, if you want to walk into this lion's den, I will open the cage for you. Here's a steak. You might want to divert. You might want to divert somebody's attention away. You'll see what I mean in a second.
I'm a little sad she didn't give a smoke to the officer. You're going to need this.
Yeah, right. Yes, I'm up to 20 packs a day. All right, here we go.
I'll have him come out if you don't mind.
That's fine. Is there any weapons involved?
No, we don't. I have one in the safe. It's locked up. You need to.
The voice sounds.
You cannot do that.
I'm here.
You have to unlock the door.
I'm here. Open the door, please.
If you'll notice by the trash can, there's a Christmas tree stand, so we're dealing with holiday stress, I guess.
He's
That's fine.
not.
I'm not coming in.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Keep the door open.
No, I'll shut the door.
No, this is not an option. I'm going to stay right here, as I'll respect that.
My mom said she'll be right back. That means you work for us, sir. I called you.
Appreciate that.
Okay, so can you
No.
put your foot? You are violating my privacy. I need.
Bitch,
First of all, appreciate that. That is verbal judo number one. Not appreciate, because he doesn't appreciate it. It's appreciate it.
Right. Yes, that is kind of passive aggressive. Like, appreciate ya. She is wearing a turtleneck. All right, here we go.
To shut the door.
And a house coat.
Do you understand I'm here because you called? So you made me your business.
I got to tell you, that is my favorite line. I've used that on more than one occasion. Hey, I just want to remind you, you called me. I wasn't interested in talking to you today.
Honestly, I'm sorry, but that's the biggest point in modern police politics. That's always been the thing I've always been screaming at my phone. Like, these bad situations, the cops got called there. They didn't want to be there.
Right. You called me.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
well,
all I
then they
wanna
hung
do-
up on me, so.
Listen, that wasn't me. Don't take that out on me. I'm only here to help, to understand what happened. And then I'm going to walk away if everybody's okay. It's easy. I'm
I
not
would
trying
like to shut the door.
She really has no defense to this. And I got to commend this officer for his patience, and he's doing exactly what I just talked about. I used to teach this in interviews and interrogations as well. What are you going to do when somebody is just talking softly to you and looking at you in the eye and just kind of trying to reason with you? You know, she's still supreme bitch, but at least her voice is lowered. At least it's not nails on a chalkboard at this point.
I want you to do that. I want to make
You
sure I
don't
talk
have
to
a
you.
warrant to come in my house.
I'm not coming in.
Emily, stop arguing.
You guys want to talk to me, please?
Stop arguing.
About what?
Emily,
What's going on?
please.
Do you want to step outside and talk to me?
Yeah, you can step outside so I can shut the door finally because he wants to violate my privacy.
Emily,
No,
stop
it's so
it.
wrong, dude. It's so
Emily.
wrong.
There are many things I want to violate in this world, sweetheart, and your privacy is the last one.
I'm not sure. I'm not.
Hey, with our taxes, dude. Like, things
Now
are
look at this
going
kid.
on. Period.
I know she called the cops
Michael Cera's doppelganger. Here we go.
because she was being really disrespectful. I threw away her bacon and I told her to leave. And then I got really upset. I picked up the tote, I dropped the tote, and then I went into my room. And yeah, she went outside and called the police.
Is this normal?
Unfortunately, yes.
Now, I'm not passing judgment. Please don't misunderstand any of this.
I know.
Is this what you're dealing with?
Yes.
Sometimes it's easier than other times,
Yes.
and right now it just kind of crossed the line.
Yeah.
She is completely, like, the mom is completely bewildered. He is just like, I just cannot wait.
He's just like, will you arrest us so we can go?
Officer, I'm about to grab for your firearm.
Yep.
And let's just see where it goes.
Did anybody put hands on anybody?
No.
Okay.
It's just, it gets very we all have different views on life, and we all want to live differently, and it's not happening.
I respect all that.
And I can't.
The trash truck, by the way, is fighting with another trash truck.
I can't kick them out. They're my kids.
I understand.
And we're trying to all deal with this.
How old is she?
She's 22.
Okay. Did you catch that? I know there's gale force winds. She's 22 years old. And the mother, I get the mother who's forever protective of her children, but she's 22 years old and she talks to America that way, and she talks to the police that way, and she talks to her mother that way. And obviously she's upset. She upset her very chill kind of brother to the point where he threw her bacon and eggs in the trash. John, do you have anything to add?
Well, I mean, I would definitely throw her bacon and eggs in the trash. She's talking about how this police officer is intruding on her space and violating her privacy and her rights and all this. She's like, I don't want to. You're not a pleasant person. Anything else, I just can't wait for my next call of some terrible things. I'll at least be able to shake you out of here. Shake you off of what's going on in my day.
Your ride is here. You know, I just, with all the trash truck activity, I just want to say, hey, your ride is here. Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
He's 20 and she's 22.
You know, I would like to say something. I like how I call you guys in a real emergency. This was a real emergency 10 minutes ago. But I like how I call you guys in a real emergency 7 years ago when my life was literally threatened, and I'm like literally.
Look at the look on the mother's face.
Oh, she's got her eyes closed. She's heard this before.
It's priceless. She does not. This is basically the parrot on her shoulder who keeps biting her ear.
They're actually,
and you guys take an hour and a half to show up. I like how I call and I scream at you guys, and then you show up like that, like snap of the fingers.
Can you please go in? 194.
I was here quick, and you're telling me to get lost. I mean, it can't be both ways. We're doing.
So I want to commend this officer. Number one, he's the most patient person in the world. He's more patient than I would be, but he's also just super empathetic to the family. Because earlier, I don't know if you caught it, because I can tell you guys are dealing with this all the time. He can see that they're beaten down. I'm not passing judgment on you, and like it was almost a Hallmark moment.
Not passing judgment. You can see the hand on his body cam. It's beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah, so she's basically saying it's funny how I called for help 7 years ago.
That's the girlfriend line. Funny how, and now she's going to bring up all your past mistakes. Which was this guy even there 7 years ago? She remembers, though. She remembers the police making a mistake 7 years ago.
And her lament is that I got a little snippy with one of your dispatchers, and you show up within seconds. You know, okay.
The best we can. I only came here to help, and you're giving me this.
Oh, and then, by the way, her complaint was you took forever to show up 7 years ago, but you showed up within minutes this time, and now you're here bothering me. So he's kind of like, do you want me here or not? Like, what are we doing here? And then we're going to see a little twist at the end that always happens. I may be guilty of it myself. Hold on.
I was fixing breakfast, and my brother throws all of my food away in the trash and starts screaming at me. So I just wanted to de-escalate the situation. It's de-escalated now. We're coming. Bye. Huh?
So you're in a better place now.
So obviously there is another officer that has got this parrot's attention, because she's hand on hip and has cranked her head over towards the other officer. I don't know if you could hear the question. I couldn't really hear it, but this poor officer who has had to put up with this tirade up to this point and just had everything settled down is now having to deal with a new set of questions, and he's trying to disrupt what is happening here. So let me go back.
So I just wanted to de-escalate the situation. It's de-escalated now. We're coming. Bye.
Bye.
Huh?
So you're in a better place now, right?
Walk away.
You're in a better place now. My question would be, were you treating your brother the way you're treating us? Because that might have something to do with the problem.
Y'all need to leave.
Guess who's in charge?
Mom, can you tell them to leave, please?
Good luck.
Thank you.
There's counseling available. It exists in the world.
And I'm in it. Thanks. Bye.
Okay.
Okay, you don't have to be rude.
All right.
How old is this guy?
She's 22.
Wow.
All right, it's a white shirt that showed up. So that doesn't really mean anything because I think in Columbus they
he was wearing a black shirt, so I'm guessing it was probably a supervisor.
Well, no, he was he wearing a black shirt or was he hold on, how do I get out of this? Was he wearing a black shirt or was he wearing a jacket because of the
Could be. Yeah. I know that there are a lot of Ohio guys that just hate their lives and they want to do laundry all the time, so they're wearing white polyester. So
well, our shirts were white here in Florida, but and that's always been a complaint of the people that I used to work with.
I used to wear, when I became a sergeant, we switched to white too. It's like, I don't know, it's just the greatest plague of rank. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah. All right. So
yeah, where do you start on this one, right? First of all, the Daily Caller or whatever says this is the worst 911 call ever, the most insane one or whatever it was. First of all, this is it's so terribly mundane. I feel so bad for police officers and dispatchers who are dealing with this kind of thing every single day.
We agree on that. So pretty tame, actually.
And
right?
she had the audacity on her, just at every single turn. But at least she did admit she was in counseling. But I just have to commend the police officer because, there's counseling out there, and he's trying to point her in the right direction because he doesn't want to come back.
Yes.
And he's doing the Lord's work right there. But unfortunately, she needs to probably just be in counseling all the time, possibly an inpatient situation.
I would agree. So lest anyone think that this is a unique 911 call, I would say this happens probably 365 times a year, if not more. There's at least one a day that is that nasty, and some successive, some like excessive and successive. So some people will call 5 and 6 times in one day with that same tone and that same attitude. Because
frequent flyers, and she's bringing up this thing that happened all these years ago, but I'm guessing that if you check the call log, she's called more recently than that. It's not just the thing that happened long ago and today.
Right. And so officer gets a thumbs up, in my opinion. I think he handled
great job. Excellent job.
Well. Mother gets the bear hug of the week from my loving arm.
Well, I don't know. She created the situation too. Like, I think Tansy would get in here and say, well, where are the parents at? The parental illness. I think mom looks like she's beaten down, but maybe she never stood up to her. I don't want to break down mom, of course, but I also just don't want to let her off the hook there.
She was smoking a cig. Dispatcher gets points because one that had to be transferred from one agency to the other. I don't know if you all caught that from the beginning, but that happened. So before we go to our first call, John, do we charge people with?
That's exactly the point I wanted to make. So when you go to this YouTube video and you see, well, she should be charged with misuse of 911. Every jurisdiction is different, but I could tell you a state's attorney has a limited plate of things that they can take on. And when you're talking about misuse of a 911, you're talking about a low misdemeanor. You're also talking about taking a situation that's completely over and dragging it out and dealing with it for however long it takes to manage a class 2 misdemeanor. Maybe that's worth it. Maybe it's not. You also really don't want to create a situation where you're having 911 callers being punished for using 911. Was this a situation where she couldn't use it? Her attitude seems to dictate maybe not. And the report about her chief complaint about her eggs and bacon going in the trash would seem to indicate this was a misuse of 911. But for all the 911 dispatcher knew, and for maybe all the police officer knew, and for all we know, maybe there was something else going on that we don't know about that she frankly intimidated everyone into silence about. I think that's entirely possible too. But we don't want to charge people for using 911 because we generally want to have an open system. And generally the more calls, the better. And it means that operators have to suffer, but I guess we want people to call.
At the end of the day, that is a domestic situation. It's a
right.
Fight between two adult kids, 28 and 22, and it could escalate into something very violent. And it does require police attention at least just to make sure that everybody's okay and nobody has been beheaded. It doesn't really matter what her demeanor is. As far as calling misuse of 911 calls, there are appropriate times when you might need to charge somebody with that to get them to stop calling 911. I mean, there are examples of, when you're standing on somebody's porch dealing with them and they're calling 911 to.
My son's in a police car. Like, well, the police are already there. So
Right.
I'm not sure what's the next step for you.
So, but that's kind of like an immediate Band-Aid, and you're right, it probably rarely gets prosecuted. I think they probably save the prosecutions for, we've had a few serial 911 callers that you couldn't isolate. You couldn't figure out where they were calling from. And this is another dangerous way to do things because you're tying up an emergency line. I mean, that's the purpose of the statute. So
I do have a pro tip for state's attorneys out there. I mean, just really step out on my lane. But if you are going to prosecute something like this, and say a condition of sentencing or bond is that someone not harass 911, do yourself a favor and throw in the bond condition that they're not allowed to call the state's attorney's office either, because instead of calling 911, they're just going to call you directly.
That's a great point. They're good. They're good. Quick with the phone.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to walk on the tightrope without a net here. We have someone in the chats
waiting a long time.
We have somebody who is sitting in the queue of our calls. We are a call center, so to speak. We have somebody by the name of Hydroman Blue, who we love and adore, and we're going to take our very first phone call, and let's see if this works. Hydroman Blue, how are you?
Well, it's about time y'all answered the phone. I've been waiting on my neighbor to fix this flagpole for 3 damn days now, and y'all still haven't showed up.
For those of you who don't know, Hydroman Blue has actually been is having an issue with the height and the dimensions of the flagpole of his neighbor. And he has actually been on hold for about 36 hours now. So Hydroman, has anything been fixed or solved in the 36 hours that you've been on hold?
Okay, well, yeah, the police, they didn't like coming out here, so I got a court date for misuse of 911.
Well, that's very topical. We were just talking about that. John, do you have any advice for Hydroman Blue, who's having an issue with the height of the flagpole of his neighbor?
I'm just sad that didn't get resolved in the last couple of days.
And we have dead air. So Hydroman, I can't thank you enough for calling, for hanging out with us. If anybody else wants to do what Hydroman did, wants to take this risk to join us on this journey, we are at 848 Comm 911. That's 848-266-6911. It's been crawling at the bottom of your screen, hopefully for the entire show. Hydroman, do you have any final words for John specifically, not for me?
John, make sure your flagpole is at least 20 feet high and your flag is 5 feet by 3 feet.
And
I never had any problems getting things to the right size.
That beard tells me you ain't lying, brother.
All right. Keep your flagpole illuminated, and we can't thank you enough for calling. And I'm sorry that we're cutting this short at 2 minutes and 20 seconds after you being on hold for 36 hours. But thank you for proving to the United States of America that we can actually take a phone call without a severe echo. If anybody else would like to call and join this kind of fun, you can do so by calling 848-COMM 911. That's 848-266-6911. We are waiting to hear your complaints. We want to hear about the time you've been stabbed. We want to hear it all.
If you do have anything at all, if you're 911 dispatcher, if you feel like you've got something to add to that conversation, go ahead. If you're a police officer and you feel like you got something to add, you're welcome here too. Just go ahead and give us a ring. This is the first time we've succeeded at getting our phone callers to call in, so we'll pretty much talk to anybody if you want to call in.
Yeah, this is pretty much like Nikolai Tesla testing the.
Yeah, it was in the Prestige. I'm sorry. This is the only experience I had with Nikolai Tesla. This is him perfecting the teleporter. Sorry.
Oh my goodness. Has he perfected the teleporter? I other than that, I really don't know what else to talk about. And there are no other calls or no other voicemails. I want you, though, to tell all of your friends about this show, especially if you're a dispatcher, because I want to give you a voice. I want you to tell all your friends if you're a cop about this show, because I really want to get things loosey-goosey in here. We hope in the future to break down some more 911 calls that are associated with Bodycam so we can both have a little bit of input and use John's expertise as well as mine. I do see that Carly is a former dispatcher and has a complaint. I would love to hear from Carly.
She's one of my favorites. Get her on.
Here she is. Carly, are you there?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you great.
Oh, good. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Carly, we can hear you. Good to talk to you.
Perfect. I just had one complaint, and it's probably my biggest pet peeve. Knowing your location. No, I don't know where you are. I'm doing the best guesswork possible with very, very limited resources. So if I ask you what street you're on and you yell at me, I will get pissed.
That's outstanding.
Well, know your address. Sometimes, like if you're disoriented, you're freaked out, don't know. That's one thing. If you're at home and I say, "Where's your emergency?" and you say, "My house," that's not enough. You got to know your address.
Right.
Oh, that's my favorite. I can't just pick the address like off my shoe and be like, "Oh yeah, duh, there."
That's everyone's biggest pet peeve. Thank you for saying that. I'm glad you brought it to all of our attention.
Yeah, that's huge. Or even having to confirm the phone number. I mean, they're like, you don't have caller ID. No, I don't. What I don't have is time to argue with you. So if you would just confirm the phone number, that would be so great.
Yes, just
Carly, thanks for calling in. I hope you call us every show.
Yeah, Carly.
I can promise every other.
please call us again.
That'll be good.
Okay.
Alrighty. Have a good night. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you,
thanks.
Carly. We are going to go to Micah, who is a standby and a favorite and everything else. He wants to check in and give an update on his baby's initials, which were going to be Comm, I believe, or FTS. Not sure. But Micah, how are you feeling this evening?
I'm doing great, and the term I believe is infamous.
Oh, infamous. I'm sorry.
But yes, that's usually how I'm referred to. Yeah, calling to check in on you guys, see how things are going. I also, my daughter, we're kind of in a holding pattern now with labor and delivery. She may be coming before February 1st, but her initials are COM.
God bless you, and God bless your daughter.
We're going to have her as a guest on the show.
Right.
Yes, as soon as she can talk.
As soon as she is birthed, we will. She will be.
Being heard on this show has never been a big tradition around here.
Yeah, she may just echo. I did leave out somebody important in the equation. God bless your wife, because apparently she has some role in this, I would think. But congratulations.
Yeah, she does play a minor role.
She does play a minor role. Are you in a vehicle right now on Bluetooth?
Yes.
That's good. I just.
Well, I think that.
It sounds.
Yeah, Bluetooth should be off. But.
No. It sounds great. I just was wondering. So,
Micah, thanks for calling in and always checking on us and leaving us voicemails. I think you're probably at the top of the list for people that are calling in and talking to us.
We are.
Well, I will always check in on you guys.
Micah, you are our number one fan. I've got to say, one of our number one fans anyway. So please hang on the line. Our screener is going to get your information, and we are going to send you a Comm Center with Drew Breezy bookmark. Thank you, Micah.
Thank you, guys.
All right, John. I don't know that I have anything else other than a heavy set of eyes and a grumbling in my tummy. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I haven't eaten all day, so I'm jonesing to do that. We are doing our best to grow as changes are happening. Remember, like, subscribe, hit that like button on the YouTube. Tell your friends, call into the show. And if you don't like us, do all of those things twice as much, because it's the only way we'll know for sure.
Tell your Aunt Sally, and tell your Aunt Sally to tell her 2 friends to listen and download these podcasts. And if you do want to leave a rating and review that is 3 stars or under, John's beard will respond to you.
Good night.